The tusk lay heavy in Ijeoma's trembling hands. It pulsed with power, warm against her skin, as if alive. Olama, Adani, and Keru stood beside her, battered but standing. Behind them, the villagers watched in stunned silence. Obi writhed on the ground, his body contorted in agony. Dark tendrils wrapped around him, pulling him toward the tusk. His screams echoed through the village. "No, no! This wasn't part of the plan," he shrieked, clawing at the ground. Sound a deep, guttural growl. The earth trembles. The tusk hums with unnatural energy. The villagers fell to their knees, their fear turning to awe. Ijeoma tightened her grip on the tusk. The gods were watching all along. Obi's eyes widened in terror as the shadows consumed him. His final scream faded into the wind. Then, silence. The tusk stopped glowing. The curse, or the lie of it, was over, and Keru swallowed hard. The forest, it never forgets. The villagers bowed. Ijeoma lifted the tusk high, her voice steady. No more lies, no more bloodshed. Uduka will rise again, but with truth, not fear. The spirits had made their choice, and the forest watched. A long time ago, the village of Uduka was rich. The land gave plenty of food, the rivers were full of fish, and the people were happy. But everything changed when the village did something terrible. Mama Ife was an old woman who lived alone at the edge of Uduka. She had only one son, a strong young man named Obinna. He was her life, her joy. But one night, the village accused Obinna of stealing sacred yam meant for the gods. "We must punish him," the elders shouted. The villagers tied him to a tree in the evil forest, leaving him there to die. Mama Ife begged. She cried, "Please, my son is innocent." But they did not listen. The next morning, Obinna was found dead, his body torn apart by wild beasts. Mama Ife held his lifeless body and screamed, "You killed my son. From today, this land will know no peace." She took a knife, cut deep into her palm, and smeared her blood on the ground. "This is my curse. The gods will hear me." That night, the sky turned black. The rivers dried up, crops withered. People fell sick, one by one. The village knew Mama Ife's curse was real. For years, Uduka suffered. No rain, no harvest, no peace. The people begged the gods for mercy, but the curse remained. Until one day, the village priest came forward with a message from the gods. There is only one way to break the curse. The sacred elephant tusk, hidden deep in the evil forest, must be brought back to the shrine. The people shivered. No one entered the evil forest and returned. It was a place of spirits and death. But the gods have chosen, the priest said. 7 virgins must go. Only they can lift this curse. The village fell silent. Parents clutched their daughters. The evil forest did not let people leave alive. And so the journey began. At dawn, the priest stood in the village square. "The gods have spoken," he said. 7 must enter the forest. 7 must bring back the tusk. Mothers wept as their daughters were chosen. One by one, the priest called their names: Ijeoma, Adane, Nkeru, Chinwe, Ebele, Olama, Uzo Amaka. The girls stood in a line, their faces pale. Some clenched their fists. Some had tears in their eyes. Ijeoma, the bravest, lifted her chin. "We will return," she said, though fear gripped her heart. The village prepared them. They wore white wrappers, tied charms around their wrists, and gave them calabashes of water. "Stay together," an old woman warned. "Do not look back. Do not answer strange voices. And no matter what you hear, never leave the path." The girls nodded, but their hands trembled. The evil forest was calling. At sunset, the girls stepped beyond the village gate, into the darkness of the trees. The journey had begun. The trees swallowed them whole. The deeper they went, the darker it became. The sun had barely set, yet the forest was black as midnight. Olama shivered. "It feels like something is watching us." "Keep moving," Ijeoma ordered, gripping her charm. "We must reach the tusk before dawn." The path was narrow, covered in thick roots that seemed to shift under their feet. Strange noises filled the air, low growls, clicking sounds, whispers that came from nowhere. Adani gasped. "Did you hear that?" They all froze. The whispers grew louder. The words were not clear, but they sounded like voices, voices calling their names. "Chinwe, Olama, come closer." Chinwe's breath hitched. "Who is that?" "Don't answer." Nkeru hissed, grabbing her hand. "Remember what the old woman said. But then, laughter. Soft, childlike giggles echoed between the trees. A small figure ran past them, disappearing into the shadows. A child? Ebele whispered. There can't be children in this forest. Then the laughter turned into a sob. A boy's voice, broken and desperate. Mama, help me. Olama gasped. That sounded like my brother. She stepped forward and grabbed her. No, it's a trick. The sobbing stopped. The forest went silent. Then from behind them, snap! Something was there. Run, Ijeoma screamed. The girls took off, their feet pounding against the ground. The whispers turned into shrieks. The trees seemed to move, closing in around them. Then, something cold brushed against Ebele's shoulder. She screamed, and the forest swallowed her whole. Ebele is gone, Adan cried, looking around frantically. Where is she? She was right beside me. Something took her. The girls spun in circles, searching, calling her name. But the forest was silent again. The only answer was the rustling leaves. Olama started to run back. We have to find her! No! Ijeoma blocked her path. We can't go back. The forest has taken her. Tears ran down Olama's face. We can't just leave her. She is gone, Ijeoma said, her voice shaking. If we go back, we die too. Nkeru dropped to her knees, hands in her hair. This is a trap. We should have never come. The wind picked up, swirling around them. Whispers rose again. This time, they sounded like Ebele's voice. Help me. I'm here. Come find me. Olama covered her ears. That's her. She's calling us. No, Ijeoma said. That is not her. A shadow moved between the trees. It was the shape of a girl, her long hair covering her face, her white wrapper torn and stained. The girl stepped back. The figure raised its head. It had no eyes. Ijeoma grabbed Olama's arm. Run! They ran, leaving Ebele, whatever she had become, behind. But as they fled, the whispers followed, and something else was coming. The girls ran, their hearts pounding like the village drums. The evil forest was alive. The trees whispered. The ground trembled. And behind them, something was chasing. Faster! Ijeoma gasped. Nkeru tripped over a root. Ah! She hit the ground hard. Olama turned back. Get up! But before Nkeru could move, a dark shadow slithered over the ground, curling around her ankle. She screamed. It's pulling me! Ijeoma grabbed her arms. Hold on! The shadow tightened. Nkeru's body jerked backward, her nails digging into the dirt. Don't let go! The others clung to her, pulling with all their strength. The shadow hissed, rising from the ground, taking the shape of something tall and hungry. It had no face, only a gaping mouth stretching too wide. Adan sobbed. It's going to eat her! Not today! Ijeoma shouted. She yanked Nkeru forward with one final pull. The shadow shrieked and vanished into the earth. The girls scrambled to their feet, panting. Nkeru sobbed, her ankle bruised, her wrapper torn. It almost took me. Ijeoma touched her face. You're alive. That's what matters. But the forest was laughing. Soft chuckles echoed from every direction. The trees rustled, as if amused. We need to move, Chinwe whispered, before it comes back. After hours of walking, they reached a river. The water was dark, almost black, reflecting nothing. Do we cross? Olama asked. We have to, Ijeoma said. The tusk is on the other side. They stepped into the water. It was cold, too cold. Adan shivered. This doesn't feel right. Halfway through, Nkeru stopped. Wait, what is that? Something pale floated beneath the surface. A hand, then another and another. Thousands of hands reaching up from the depths. Chinwe screamed, Get out! Get out! The hands shot up, grabbing their ankles, pulling them down. Ijeoma kicked. Fight them! Olama thrashed, but the hands were strong. Cold fingers wrapped around her neck. She choked, sinking. No! Hold on! Nkeru grabbed her arm. The water roared. The hands tightened. And then, boom! Thunder shook the sky. The river exploded with light. The hands recoiled, hissing, vanishing into the depths. The girls gasped, dragging themselves onto the shore. They lay there, coughing, shivering. What just happened? Adani whispered. Ijeoma looked up at the sky. The gods, they saved us. For now. The girls lay on the riverbank, shivering. Their wrappers were soaked, their bodies weak. The evil forest was not just trying to scare them, it was trying to kill them. We need to keep moving, Ijeoma said, pushing herself up. Chinwe wiped her face. Move to where? This forest wants us dead. Olama pointed ahead. Look, a narrow path stretched before them, littered with bones, human bones. Adani clutched her chest. This is where people die. Nkeru stepped forward, her voice hollow. What if this is where the other virgins from past years never returned? Silence. Ijeoma swallowed hard. Then we stepped carefully. They walked in a line, their breaths shallow. Every step crunched against old skeletons. Some skulls still had teeth. Some bones had deep claw marks. Then, snap, a twig broke behind them. They froze. Something was watching. Sound of slow, heavy breathing. A faint growl in the distance. Chinwe whispered, "We're not alone." Olama turned her head slightly. Shadows moved between the trees, circling them. Eyes, dozens of them, glowing in the darkness. Then, a growl. Deep, hungry, close. "They're coming," Adan screamed. Out of the shadows, creatures emerged, twisted, half-human beasts with rotting flesh and sharp blackened claws. Their mouths dripped with something dark. Nkeru gasped. "Are those spirits?" "No," Ijeoma said. "Those are the ones who never left this forest. The dead. Run!" The girls bolted, their feet kicking up bones. The creatures howled, their movements too fast, too unnatural. Something grabbed Chinwe's wrapper. She screamed. Ijeoma spun around, slashing at it with a sharp stone. It shrieked and let go. They ran faster, caught breathless, the creatures chasing, closing in. Then light, a faint golden glow up ahead. "The shrine!" Olama shouted. Hope surged through them. They sprinted toward it, the beast snarling behind. The sacred tusk was near, but so was death. The girls stumbled into a clearing. In the center stood an ancient shrine, covered in thick vines. At its heart sat the sacred elephant tusk. "We made it," Nkeru gasped. Adane rushed forward, reaching for the tusk. "No," Ijeoma grabbed her. "We don't know if it's safe." Olama pointed behind them. "We don't have time! They're coming!" The creatures burst into the clearing, their hollow eyes locked onto the girls. Then, boom! Lightning struck the ground, sending sparks flying. The earth trembled. A voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once. Deep, ancient. "Who dares touch what belongs to the gods?" The air turned heavy. The fire around the shrine blazed higher. A figure appeared before them. Tall, cloaked in smoke, its face hidden behind a golden mask. Adan dropped to her knees. "The guardian." The figure raised a staff. "You have come for the tusk, but the forest demands sacrifice." Ijeoma stepped forward, her voice firm. "We have lost one already." The guardian's voice rumbled. "One is not enough." Behind them, the creatures crept closer, waiting. The girls looked at each other, fear in their eyes. Someone had to die. The guardian's golden mask reflected the firelight. "The gods demand sacrifice." The girls stood frozen. The creatures behind them growled, waiting. Olama's hands trembled. "Please, we have lost Ebele already." The guardian's voice rumbled like thunder. "One more." Adan turned to Ijeoma. "What do we do?" Ijeoma's mind raced. They had come too far to stop now. The village needed this tusk, but who would they give up? The guardian's voice grew sharper. "Choose, or the forest will choose for you." Sound of wind howling, the ground rumbling beneath them. Then Chinwe took a step forward. Her voice was steady. "I'll do it." "No." Nkeru grabbed her. "We can't let you." Chinwe smiled sadly. "We won't all make it out. If one must stay, let it be me." Tears filled Olama's eyes. "There has to be another way." "There isn't," Chinwe said. She turned to the guardian. "Take me." The guardian raised its staff. A gust of wind lifted Chinwe into the air. She gasped but didn't struggle. Then the forest swallowed her. The ground stopped shaking. The creatures vanished. The fire dimmed, and the guardian turned to them. "The gods accept your sacrifice." The tusk began to glow. Sound of a deep hum, like an ancient power awakening. Ijeoma reached for it. The moment her fingers touched the smooth ivory, the world spun, and everything went dark. Sound of sudden silence, a heartbeat, then boom, a deafening pulse of energy, thunder rolling in the distance. Ijeoma's eyes snapped open. The others were beside her, gasping. The shrine was gone. Only the tusk remained, now resting in Ijeoma's arms. "We have it," Nkeru whispered. But the forest was angry. The trees groaned. The sky darkened. A terrible roar echoed from deep within. Olama clutched Ijeoma's arm. "We have to run." The ground cracked beneath them. Roots shot up like hands, grabbing at their feet. Adane screamed as a branch coiled around her leg. "It won't let us leave." Ijeoma clutched the tusk. "We were never meant to take this." The wind howled. The forest came alive, voices screaming in rage. "You will not escape." The girls ran, dodging branches, leaping over roots. The path twisted and changed, leading them in circles. Then Olama tripped. She hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from her chest. "Help!" Nkeru reached for her, but something grabbed Olama's leg. A hand. Not a root. A decayed, rotting hand. Ebele's hand. Olama screamed, "She's here!" Ebele's face rose from the dirt, hollow-eyed, broken. You left me. The dead were waking. Sound of a guttural, ghostly wail. The rustling of hundreds of unseen bodies rising from the ground. The girls grabbed Olama, pulling her free. Ijeoma turned, clutching the tusk. We have to get out now. Ahead, the trees bent, forming a twisted path. The exit was near, but the dead were right behind them. The evil forest would not let them leave without a fight. Ijeoma ran as fast as her legs could carry her. The heavy tusk clutched against her chest. The others sprinted beside her, their faces twisted with fear. Behind them, the forest screamed. Ebele, Chinwe, and all the others who had died here. They were coming. You left us. You left us. Nkeru sobbed. They won't stop. Adani tripped. Ah! Ijeoma spun around. Adan was on the ground, struggling. Skeletal hands clutched her ankles, dragging her backward. Olama grabbed Adani's arms. Hold on! The hands tightened, pulling harder. The ground split open, revealing a gaping pit of darkness. The smell of rotting flesh filled the air. The dead wanted another sacrifice. Adani screamed. Don't let go! Ijeoma threw the tusk onto her back and grabbed Adani's wrists. Pull! The forest howled in rage. The dead screeched, clawing at Adan's legs, trying to tear her away. With one final pull, they yanked her free. The ground snapped shut. The forest trembled in fury. We have to go, Ijeoma yelled. The exit was ahead, a break in the trees, a glimmer of light beyond. They ran, harder, faster. Sound of footsteps slamming against the earth, the wind roaring, the howls of the dead fading behind them. Then they burst through the trees, and the evil forest was behind them. The screaming stopped. The wind died. Silence. The girls collapsed onto the dirt, gasping for air. They had survived. The village was close. They could see the glow of fires beyond the trees. Olama laughed weakly. We made it. Adan hugged Nkeru, both of them crying. We're alive? Ijeoma held the tusk tightly. We can finally break the curse. But then, something changed. The air grew thick, heavy. Nkeru frowned. Why does it feel wrong? A shadow moved behind them. They turned and gasped. Obi, the village priest, stood there. But he wasn't alone. Behind him were warriors, armed, expressionless. Ijeoma's heart pounded. What is this? Obi stepped forward, his voice calm. You did well, my daughters. The warriors moved closer, too close. Ijeoma's grip tightened on the tusk. What's happening? Obi smiled. But it was cold. You have done the god's work, but now the tusk belongs to us. Olama's eyes widened. What? Adani stepped back. No, this is for the village. Obi sighed. The village? You think this was about the village? Ijeoma's blood ran cold. Obi chuckled. The curse was never real, my child. Silence. Dead silence. Nkeru's breath hitched. What do you mean? Obi's smile widened. The curse was a lie, and you just brought us the most powerful relic in history. The girls froze. They had risked their lives, lost their friends, for nothing. The warriors raised their weapons. Obi's voice was gentle. Now, give me the tusk. Ijeoma's hands trembled as she held the tusk tighter. The weight of Obi's betrayal crushed her chest. The curse, she whispered. It was never real? Obi smirked. Your suffering, your pain, it was real. But the reason? A lie. The gods never asked for virgins, never demanded sacrifices. It was all a story. Nkeru shook her head, her voice weak. Why? Obi sighed, as if speaking to children. Power, my dear. Fear controls people. And that tusk, he pointed at it, it is more powerful than you can imagine. Olama's fists clenched. You sent us to die. Obi didn't even blink. And yet here you stand, worthy, strong. He gestured to the warriors. Now give me the tusk and you may live. Adani spat on the ground. We should have let the forest take us. Ijeoma took a deep breath. Then she stepped forward and held the tusk out. Obi's eyes gleamed with victory. He reached for it, and Ijeoma swung it like a club. Crack! The tusk slammed into Obi's face, sending him stumbling back with a scream. Blood splattered onto the dirt. Run! Ijeoma yelled. The warriors lunged, but the girls were faster. They darted through the trees, their lungs burning, their feet pounding against the earth. Ijeoma! Nkeru cried. They're catching up! Ijeoma clutched the tusk tighter. She couldn't let it fall into Obi's hands. Then a spear flew past her head. She gasped. The warriors were throwing weapons now. Olama screamed as an arrow nicked her arm. We won't make it! Ijeoma's mind raced. Then she saw it, a small river up ahead. Jump into the water, she shouted. One by one, the girls leapt, sound of splashing. Muffled shouts from the warriors. The river's current pulling them away. The cold water dragged them under, sweeping them away from the warriors. Obi's furious screams faded into the distance. They had escaped. For now. The river had carried them far. When they finally crawled onto the muddy bank, they collapsed in exhaustion. Ijeoma clutched the tusk to her chest. We can't stop. We need to warn the village. Adani wiped her face. Will they even believe us? Nkeru swallowed hard. We have to try. They forced themselves up and started walking. The village fires were close now, but something felt wrong. Olama was the first to see it. Her voice trembled. Look. They stepped into the village square and froze. Torches lined the streets. Warriors stood in rows. The villagers were silent, their heads bowed. And at the center of it all, Obi stood waiting. Ijeoma's stomach dropped. No, Adani whispered. They had walked straight into a trap. Obi smiled, his lips still bleeding from Ijeoma's strike. Welcome home, my daughters. The warriors closed in. Obi extended his hand. Give me the tusk. Ijeoma's grip tightened. She had one last choice to make. Ijeoma's heart pounded in her chest. The tusk felt heavier than ever in her hands. Behind her, Olama, Adani, and Nkeru stood frozen, their eyes darting between the warriors and the watching villagers. Obi sighed, wiping the blood from his face. You cannot win, child. He took a step closer. The warriors outnumber you. The villagers obey me. Ijeoma lifted the tusk, her voice shaking but firm. You lied to them. You used them. And now you want to use this for your own power. Obi smirked. And who will stop me? You? The warriors lunged. Goma screamed and swung the tusk. Crack! It smashed into the first warrior's skull. He collapsed. Olama kicked another in the stomach. Nkeru grabbed a burning torch and swung it wildly, forcing them back. The villagers gasped. Some backed away. Others watched, confused, doubt creeping into their faces. Obi saw it. His smile vanished. Enough of this. He raised his staff, and darkness exploded from it. Sound, a loud, supernatural whoosh like a storm crashing into them. Ijeoma and the others were thrown back. The tusk flew from her hands. Obi caught it midair. Silence fell. He looked down at the ancient artifact, his eyes gleaming with power. Finally, Ijeoma coughed, struggling to sit up. No. Obi turned to the villagers, lifting the tusk high. With this, I shall bring true power to Uduka. No more famine, no more weakness. We shall be rulers, not beggars. The villagers hesitated. Some murmured. Others looked afraid. Then Nkeru's voice cut through the silence. And what will it cost? Obi frowned. She staggered to her feet, her voice shaking but loud enough for all to hear. How many more of us will die for your power? She turned to the villagers. He sent us to the evil forest knowing there was no curse. Ebele died for nothing. Chinwe sacrificed herself for nothing. The murmurs grew louder. Villagers whispered. Eyes narrowed, Obi's face darkened. Silence! But Ijeoma stood too. He doesn't want to save Uduka. He wants to rule it. A sudden roar split the air. Sound, the tusk vibrating, humming with an unnatural force, a deep, growling echo from beyond. Obi screamed. The tusk burned in his hands. He dropped it, clutching his arms as dark tendrils wrapped around him. No. This wasn't part of the plan. The ground trembled. A shadow rose from the tusk, a spirit, ancient, angry. Sound, the wailing of unseen voices, a deep, guttural growl like the earth itself is alive. Ijeoma's breath caught. The gods, they were watching. The villagers fell to their knees. Obi screamed as the shadow engulfed him. His body contorted, twisted. He reached out, but no one helped him. And then he was gone, a final, echoing shriek. Then silence. The tusk lay still in the dirt. Ijeoma picked it up. It was warm, alive. Olama whispered, the gods made their choice. The villagers bowed before them. The curse, or the lie of it, was over. But the forest and its spirits would never forget. This story teaches us that truth always prevails, no matter how long a lie is upheld. The people of Uduka lived in fear for generations, believing in a curse that never existed. They trusted their leaders blindly, only to realize that power and greed had manipulated them. We learned that true strength comes from questioning, from seeking the truth, and from standing up against deception. Ijeoma and the other girls faced unimaginable horrors, not because the gods demanded it, but because of the greed of one man. Yet they fought back. They refused to be used. And in the end, justice was served. This story also reminds us that power gained through lies and manipulation will never last. Obi thought he could control the village forever, but the spirits, the true guardians of justice, had the final say. So, what can we learn? Never believe everything you are told without seeking the truth. Do not allow fear to control your life. Courage and unity can overcome even the greatest evil. And most importantly, greed and deception always lead to destruction. Final words to my listeners. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more thrilling, thought-provoking tales, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Hit that like button, share with your friends, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. More spine-chilling, eye-opening, and inspiring stories are on the way. Stay tuned and see you in the next one.